Hello all, how are you doing? Hope everything's going well. Well, in this talk, we're going to look at your reading from the Harvard Business Review on Chapter 5, and that's the article on blue ocean strategy, which is, I think, very interesting because it is different and maybe even contradicts a lot of what we've been looking at up to this point. And I always think it's very healthy to look at a different view, especially when it's something that seems to be applicable to a lot of the things we see around us today in terms of new company formation, new products, etc. Anyway, so we look at the Blue Ocean Strategy chapter, and of course there's a whole book that's based on these authors, and if you care to read that, I think it's quite interesting. Anyway, Blue Ocean Strategy, basically the concept here is that rather than compete with existing businesses and against existing businesses, why not go after uncontested markets where there is no competition or where the competition is very limited? In other words, do something brand new, something new and different. And I think that's very appealing and exciting in concept. The way the author breaks this out is basically that there are two types of oceans. A red ocean, which is comprised of all existing businesses, and then the blue ocean, which is comprised of all non-existing businesses. In other words, the ones that don't exist yet. So that's really the point. And they make a good point is that most traditional businesses that we look at nowadays, such as automobiles, airplanes, etc., they originally were blue ocean strategies. They went into a space that did not exist. They produced a product, an industry, a concept that wasn't around at that time. So it really was, even though they look traditional and they've been around forever, they haven't. And when they initially started, they came from people's thinking about on a blue ocean strategy concept. There's a point, they make a point that most businesses, when they talk about innovation, the real innovation comes from trending out or modifying or somehow changing existing business lines. And I actually am a proponent of that. When I look at companies, their strategies, I think there's a lot to be gained from taking something that you're already doing, tweaking it, moving it a little bit, so that you have everything already moving forward and you're capturing another slice of the market without making a drastic and overall change. And that's my view. It seems to work a lot. However, they do make a good point that there's a limited upside potential in that strategy. You can capture more, you can do more with what you're doing, but are you going to change the world? And I think that's obviously you're not. They make a good point saying that when you come up with something new, that creates a lot of natural barriers to entry for other would-be competitors. You have the first step. You're a first mover that creates a brand and a market share, and that it's difficult to overcome. Not only in terms of the physical elements, but just the organizational mentality. Are you really going to make that major change that you see another company doing and get on board with that so quickly? And often the answer is no. It's difficult to move entire organizations towards something like that. However, there are a lot of cases where people have adapted. For example, Alibaba. Alibaba is like an Amazon in Asia. So basically, there's nothing new there except that before Amazon or before other companies could take it global, they jumped into the space. And there are a lot of examples of that where you can, if you're really quick, you can see an innovation and blue ocean strategy of another company in a market and quickly take it, steal it, or imitate it in some way to apply it to your own market. And that has a lot of success. There's been a lot of success because there are, of course, tweaks locally that make it more palatable and accessible to the local population that perhaps the original innovator couldn't come up with. If we look at some of this, for example, a good concept is Apple, that when they look at their blue, when the iPod, I don't know how many of you remember those, but when the iPod came out, it was unheard of that you would be able to store so much, so many of your songs or other things on a little device. People carried around devices that played cassettes or they maybe disc or they radios or things like that. But to put all your favorite songs on one thing, it was just such an innovation and something completely new and different. And then of course the iPhone. It came around in 2007 and it's transformed so much of what we see around us today is iPhone or iPhone imitation based. And of course in the iPad, the idea of, we all remember when those first came out, is fascinating. Who said I needed a pad? But they when they do come out, you realize how much you wanted and needed. And that's a big concept. When you're thinking of a blue ocean strategy, you're intending to develop and create demand rather than satisfy demand. That's a big difference. This quick just look at the difference between blue ocean strategy and red ocean strategy, and we'll go real fast. The red ocean strategy, as we're talking about, competes in existing space. It focuses on the competition, and again, most strategy thinkers and strategy commentators talk about the competition as almost the central point, where in the blue ocean strategy, the competition is irrelevant because there is none. You're going to somewhere completely different. So you're going in an unknown, uncontested market space against no visible competitors. And you're exploiting existing demand in the red ocean strategy, and you're creating or capturing new demand that you're developing in the blue ocean strategy. In the red ocean strategy, I don't agree quite with the authors here. They're talking about red ocean is making a value cost trade-off. In other words, that the more value you add, the higher the cost, the less value you can control your cost. And the blue ocean strategy is offering value and cost reduction at the same time. I think there are plenty of times in red ocean companies do both. Anyway, and then and really just to focus on that, the big thing is there's no competition in the new space. Now, I think my view on this is that it's exciting, great, but man, is it tough. Not everybody's the genius level that it would require to make that blue ocean strategy concept. I think, more power to you guys if you look that way, and I think that's where so much of the innovation, the future will be. If you look 100 years ago or even 30 years ago, a lot of companies that are household names, they did not exist. 20 years from now, it'll be the same thing. There are a lot of blue ocean strategy companies being formed right now, the next few years, people like you that are going to do that we don't even imagine what's going to happen. So it's great, it's fascinating, it's fantastic. So more power to you if you can come up with those things. But for many of us, we're going to be strategists that look at existing red ocean and how to tweak in that. Not to say that but do keep the blue ocean strategy in mind. You see wonderful examples of that happening around us, and I think it's exciting. On this slide here, this is a famous quote. In 1899, the head of the Commissioner of U.S. Patent Office, Charles Dewell, is alleged to have said that he closed the patent office because everything that can be invented has been invented. That's like the old "there's nothing new under the sun" concept in Solomon. That Solomon said. But the idea is that every time you think that's the case, it's not. There are always new things. People come up with new ideas, and it's wonderful to see. So I think the blue ocean strategy is extremely captivating in concept. It's motivating and it's exciting. It's not easy to do because it takes a lot of creativity and thinking of things that aren't really there yet. But if you're very sensitive to way things are going and how demand is changing, and you can apply technology, not necessarily innovate technology, but to apply technology to something new, I think can be a well worth considering and thinking on for your own future. Thank you.